Right now, as we're speaking, there are passengers sitting in international business class who actually paid less for their lie-flat bed than the person sitting like 20 rows behind them in economy
Mhm.
paid for a cramped middle seat,
Oh, yeah, it happens all the time.
which is just wild to me. So today, we are going to look at the exact mechanics of how they did it.
It really is a fascinating systemic puzzle, especially because we're navigating a travel landscape right now where global events have caused fuel prices to just absolutely skyrocket over the last year.
Right, and airlines aren't eating that cost.
Oh, definitely not. They are aggressively passing those costs directly onto you, the consumer. So finding affordable comfort on a long-haul flight is, it's no longer just a luxury.
Yeah.
It has become a necessary skill if you actually want to travel internationally without exhausting your entire budget before you even land.
Okay, let's unpack this because our roadmap for today's deep dive is this brilliant piece of writing from March 20, 2026 by Roberta Hill. It's titled The Art of Affordable Long-Haul Comfort Flying Long-Haul Comfortably Without Paying the Full Price.
It's a great read.
It really is. And what makes Hill's approach so refreshing is that uh, she isn't giving you a glossy, aspirational travel guide. Our
Yeah.
mission here is to extract her incredibly pragmatic strategies for surviving brutal 10-hour flights without paying that absurd, 3 to 5 times markup airlines demand for premium cabins.
Yeah, and if you analyze her methodology, her overarching philosophy has very little to do with status. It's not about being fancy. It is
Mhm.
entirely about energy management. The goal she outlines is not drinking champagne at 30,000 feet just so you can post a photo of it online.
Which, let's be honest, we all know people who do that.
Oh, absolutely. But her goal is protecting your physical and mental stamina so you arrive at your destination with enough energy to actually experience the place you just spent a massive amount of time and money trying to reach.
I love that. And to manage that energy, Hill introduces a concept we can kind of call the 9-hour rule. Because before we look at the complex algorithms of, how to get a cheaper seat, we have to establish the biological baseline of when you actually need one.
What's fascinating here is how she calculates human endurance, because the human body is remarkably resilient for short durations, right?
Right. Yeah.
But it degrades predictably under constant physical compression.
Yeah. And her breakdown is ruthless. If you are on a flight under 6 hours, her advice is essentially to just, accept your fate in standard economy.
Yeah, exactly.
You drink the terrible coffee, you read a book, and you remind yourself that crossing a continent in a few hours is a modern marvel. The physical inconvenience is brief enough that your circadian rhythm isn't completely shattered.
And then the calculation shifts slightly in that middle tier, the 6 to 10 hour window.
The tricky zone.
Exactly. This is where she notes that a premium economy upgrade might be justifiable, but only if the cash difference is negligible. But once a flight schedule crosses that 9 to 10 hour threshold, the entire economic and biological calculation flips.
Right, that is the tipping point, where a lie-flat seat stops looking like an extravagant indulgence and starts looking like a biological necessity.
Yeah, at hour 10, your knees are screaming.
Oh, they really are. And the ability to sleep becomes a highly valuable currency. It's like treating flight comfort like a winter coat.
Okay, I like that.
Like, you don't buy an Everest-grade parka for a brisk autumn walk, but you absolutely need it for a blizzard. The author's point is that choosing when to spend is way more important than how much you spend.
That's a perfect analogy. And what I appreciate is that even at hour 10, she applies a strict financial boundary. She refuses to pay a premium airfare if the cost of that flight equals the cost of her ground and accommodation expenses for the entire trip.
Ah, right, the hotel rule.
Yeah, it's a brilliant way to contextualize travel spending. Think about it. If you spend $4,000 on a business class flight, but your 2-week hotel stay only costs $3,000, your capital allocation is entirely backwards.
That makes so much sense when you put it like
Well,
that.
you've overinvested in a temporary transit state and underinvested in the actual destination experience. It forces you to view flight comfort as a calculated investment in your first 2 days of vacation energy rather than just, an unlimited expense.
Okay, so if we know our limits and we know we shouldn't spend more on the flight than the hotel, we have to look closely at the cabin where this battle for value is actually fought, which is premium economy.
Oh, boy. Premium economy. It is probably the most misunderstood real estate in the sky.
Hill straight up admits it is a confusing middle ground. And looking at the two very different scenarios she outlines, you see the massive inconsistencies.
Yeah, it's all over the place.
Right. So on one hand, she scores a fantastic round-trip premium fare from Montreal to Bogota. There was no actual business class available on that specific aircraft, but the premium seats were semi-flat. She got incredible value there.
But then she details a flight from the Dominican Republic to Montreal.
Yes.
And this is the perfect case study in what we are actually buying from airlines today.
Okay, wait, because this part was wild to me. There was no official premium economy fare available for purchase on that flight. But during seat selection, she pays an extra $36 to secure a larger seat in the front of the cabin that was originally designed for a premium class.
Yeah, an older plane, probably.
Right. But there was a massive catch here. For that $36, she received absolutely zero extra service. No upgraded meal, no priority boarding, no free drinks, nothing but the physical seat. Wait, if there was zero extra service, isn't premium economy just a marketing trick where airlines are monetizing an extra inch of legroom?
Well, I hear what you're saying, but if we connect this to the bigger picture, this 36-socle upgrade is the ultimate realization of airline unbundling.
Unbundling.
Yeah. Historically, a plane ticket was an all-inclusive commodity. Your single fare subsidized your baggage, your meal, your legroom, and the customer service.
Right, the golden age of flying.
Exactly. But low-cost carriers destroyed that model by unbundling those elements into separate, a la carte purchases, and legacy carriers, well, they were forced to adapt.
So by paying that $36, Hill is essentially saying, I do not care about the bundled illusion of being a VIP. I am solely purchasing the physical architecture of the seat to preserve my spine.
Precisely. Space is the service. She strips away the marketing. Because think about it, when you are 7 hours into a flight, the priority boarding you experienced hours ago has zero value.
That's so true.
The slightly warmer bread roll holds no value. The cubic volume of space around your knees is literally the only metric that matters at that point.
Which makes perfect sense. But it also means you cannot blindly trust the word premium on a booking screen. Hill is adamant that you have to take an active role in verifying the product.
Oh, absolutely. You can't just trust the airline's website.
Yeah, you need to use external tools like SeatMap to inspect the exact aircraft assigned to your route. Because a premium seat on a 20-year-old plane might just be a standard economy seat with, like, a red headrest and an extra inch of foam.
And doing that research actively protects you from the trap of mixed cabins on connecting flights.
Oh, I hate that.
It's the worst. Airlines will happily sell you a premium economy ticket where your short 2-hour feeder flight is in a premium seat, but the 10-hour transatlantic leg is suddenly in standard economy.
Yeah, they really bury that in the details. You have to read the fine print of the equipment assignment.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've established that we are hunting for physical space, not soft perks, and we know our financial limits. Now we have to figure out how to actually acquire these seats without paying cash.
The million-dollar question.
Exactly. And this brings us to the great modern paradox of airline points. We all earn more points than ever before, but it feels harder than ever to actually use them.
Yeah, the loyalty landscape has completely fractured over the last 5 years.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Hill warns us that points programs are shifting from fixed award charts to dynamic pricing.
And dynamic pricing is brutal.
It is. It's the exact same algorithmic model as surge pricing on an Uber. Like, when the Friday night concert ends, your Uber home suddenly costs triple. For airlines, when demand for a specific route spikes, the cost in points dynamically adjusts upwards in real time.
It creates a complete mirage. Airlines promote these aspirational deals, like fly to Paris for 40,000 miles.
Right, and all the travel blogs amplify them.
Exactly. But because of dynamic pricing, finding those exact promotional rates on the dates you actually have time off from work is nearly mathematically impossible. The algorithm is designed to protect the airline's yield, not to reward your loyalty.
And Hill proves the house always wins with her own math regarding a recent Air Canada promotion. So they offered a massive 90% bonus if you purchased airline miles with cash.
Sounds like a great deal on paper.
It does. Now, she also holds a TD Aeroplan Visa card, which earns her points on daily spending. You would think stacking a 90% bonus with credit card rewards would allow you to totally outsmart the system.
You would think. But when she ran the final numbers, the dynamic inflation of the flight she wanted meant the entire promotion was a wash. She basically broke even.
Wait, really? Why does that happen?
Because the airline essentially acts as an unregulated central bank. They can print as many miles as they want and sell them to you or to the credit card companies at a huge profit.
Right.
But they also control the price of the commodity those miles buy. They gave her a 90% bonus in currency, but their algorithm simply inflated the cost of the premium seat in real time to absorb that extra currency.
That is incredibly frustrating, but also vital to understand. It means you can't rely on points as some magical solution.
No, you really can't.
I mean, Hill had a great success last year, picking a fixed-rate business class seat on Ethiopian Airlines out of New York via her Aeroplan miles. She beat the system by finding a partner airline still operating on a fixed chart. But this year, trying to replicate that with Eva Air, she failed completely.
It requires treating your points as a strategic, long-term reserve rather than a quick fix. You have to be willing to hunt across partner networks, and if the dynamic price is surging, you just hold your currency.
Okay, but what about bidding? Because I feel like every time I buy an economy ticket now, I get an email 3 days before departure inviting me to bid for an upgrade to business class. It feels like an auction.
Oh, it is. It's a highly sophisticated yield management tool. The airline is trying to extract the maximum possible revenue from a seat they know they are not going to sell at full price before departure.
But Hill is incredibly blunt about this. She states clearly that she has never been successful with the bidding strategy. Not online, not at the check-in desk, not via email.
Yeah, she's very honest about that.
And I appreciate this transparency because the internet is flooded with influencers claiming they snagged a first-class suite for like a $200 bid.
Those are statistical outliers. I mean, if you build your entire travel strategy on the hope of a discounted upgrade bid clearing at the last minute, you are basically gambling against a supercomputer. You have to psychologically and physically prepare for the seat you actually purchased.
Right. Expect economy if you bought economy. Because these dynamic algorithms have essentially neutralized the reliable value of credit card points and upgrade bids, we are forced to look outside the airline's intended ecosystem to find any actual value.
We have to start exploiting their structural inefficiencies.
Yes, and Hill calls these her quiet tricks.
I love that term. These require more effort, but they operate completely outside the emotional manipulation of loyalty programs.
First two are fairly straightforward supply and demand tactics, right? Book early morning flights and use smaller secondary airports whenever possible.
Because business travelers don't want to fly at 5 a.m.
Exactly. But her third trick, which is booking repositioning flights, is where we see real leverage. This means if you live in Toronto, but you find a premium flight out of Chicago to London that is thousands of dollars cheaper, you buy a separate cheap economy ticket to fly yourself to Chicago and start your main journey there.
This exploits the hub-and-spoke model of modern aviation. Airlines do not price tickets based on the sheer distance you're flying. They price tickets based on the wealth and competitive landscape of your origin city.
Wow.
Yeah, so by changing your origin city to a market where the airline has less pricing power, you literally break their algorithm.
Okay, I have to push back hard on this one, though. What happens if my cheap little flight from Toronto to Chicago gets delayed by a snowstorm?
That is the big risk.
Right, because I am on two entirely separate itineraries. The airline flying me from Chicago to London does not care that my feeder flight was late. My ticket is voided and I am totally stranded. That is a massive financial risk.
You're not wrong. This raises an important question about risk mitigation, and you are entirely correct to flag it. A true repositioning strategy requires building a firewall between the two itineraries.
A firewall, like a long layover.
More than that, seasoned travelers who use this trick do not book a 2-hour layover. They fly into the repositioning city a full day early.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they book a cheap airport hotel, have a nice dinner, and treat it as a 24-hour buffer. Even with the cost of that hotel, the savings on the long-haul premium cabin often remain in the thousands of dollars.
Okay, that makes a lot more sense. It turns a stressful gamble into a built-in stopover.
Exactly.
But the quiet trick that absolutely blew my mind was her observation about midweek flying. We have all heard the tired myth that you should, sit at your computer on a Tuesday to book a flight to get a cheaper price.
Which is completely false, by the way.
Right. The yield management system does not care what day of the week you click purchase.
Not at all.
But Hill clarifies the reality of this. It is about the physical day you put your body on the plane, flying on a Tuesday or Wednesday. And she isn't doing this just to save $50 on an economy ticket. She does it to manipulate the dynamic pricing of the premium cabin.
This is the cascading effect of automated pricing. It's brilliant.
Break that down for us. How does my cheap economy flight affect the business class seats?
Well, it is all interconnected. Business travel drops precipitously in the middle of the week, and leisure travel also dips, as most people prefer to maximize their weekends.
Right, everyone wants to fly on Friday.
Exactly. Because overall demand for the flight is low, the algorithm drops the price of standard economy seats to stimulate baseline sales. But because the system is mathematically designed to maintain a proportional price gap between cabins, the lack of economy demand essentially acts as an anchor.
Oh, I see.
It drags the dynamic price of premium economy and business class down into an affordable bracket. You are basically using the emptiness of the back of the plane to force a discount at the front of the plane.
That is a phenomenal insight. You aren't just looking for a sale. You are surfing the wake of low corporate demand.
Perfectly said.
But, for all of these structural tricks, the repositioning, the dynamic points algorithms, the unbundled seat maps, Hill's final piece of advice is a really necessary reality check. Sometimes, the algorithm simply beats you.
Oh, without a doubt. The system is incredibly volatile. Fares fluctuate instantly, corporate buyouts fill premium cabins unexpectedly, and deals just vanish before your eyes.
She shares this really humbling story about crossing the Atlantic Ocean in her 50s. She was hauling 2 heavy 23-kilogram suitcases. All her point strategies failed, and she ended up trapped in a terrible middle seat right next to the toilets for the entire long-haul crossing.
It is the absolute worst-case scenario we all dread.
It really is. And yet she writes that the travel itself was still wonderful. She concludes the article with this thought: comfort helps, but curiosity has always been the real upgrade.
That's a great line. And while that sounds somewhat poetic, it actually serves as a highly practical defense mechanism. Well, flexibility is not just about changing your departure airport or flying on a Wednesday. It is about psychological adaptability. If your motivation for the trip is deeply rooted in experiencing a new culture, then the physical discomfort of the transit tube becomes a temporary tax you pay for the adventure, rather than the defining trauma of the trip.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener, as you plan your next trip? It means mastering long-haul travel is not about blindly throwing money at luxury. It is about treating the airline industry like the complex, unbundled system it has become. It means knowing your 9-hour physical breaking point. It means inspecting premium economy to ensure you are buying vital physical space, not just a marketing illusion of priority service.
Right, space over service.
Exactly. It requires treating your frequent flyer points as a depreciating currency rather than a magic wand, and using quiet, structural tricks like repositioning and midweek demand dragging to bend the algorithm in your favor.
And, it also leaves us with a rather profound systemic question.
What's that?
Well, Hill proves that educated, determined travelers will endure a 10-hour middle seat by the lavatories simply because their human drive to explore the world overrides their physical pain.
True.
Yield management algorithms track this tolerance perfectly. So if airlines know that our wanderlust is ultimately an inelastic demand, that we will tolerate almost anything to reach another continent, how much more dense and physically restrictive might they make ultra-long-haul economy cabins over the next decade?
Wow. That is a brilliant and slightly terrifying thought. If our curiosity is the only thing keeping us going, the airlines have very little financial incentive to stop shrinking the pitch of those seats.
Exactly. They know we'll keep flying.
It really underscores why we need to master these strategies today. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Next time you step onto a plane and you feel that cabin space shrink and that 8-hour clock begin to stretch, remember to be strategic, protect your spine, question the algorithm, and we will see you out there.